Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 275. Yep, it's week 275. And we've got a special guest for you. It's the kind of the parade of the Ashleys. So Ashley number two, which is Ashley Mangione, thanks to Jack Santinello. We're going to talk about, mindset and all kinds of things that are affecting leaders in particular, but kind of affect everybody, quite frankly, if you're breathing. But we are specifically trying to target business owners and leaders. And so thank you guys for joining us today. It's a beautiful day in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I hope it is wherever you are in case you're outside of Charlotte. So before we get moving and we let Ashley Mangione do her thing, by the way, Ashley, any
Yeah.
chance with that last name you have any relationship to Chuck, who unfortunately passed away on July 22nd this year? I love Chuck Mangione's music, by the way. Any chance that you have any relationship to Chuck Mangione?
Okay. I was getting nervous thinking you were about to ask me about the other infamous,
No.
or I should say the
Chuck.
infamous, other Mangione that's out in the news today. So I was like, oh, because I actually get asked about that quite a bit, unfortunately. So for Chuck, this is actually, my husband's last name, and
Yeah.
he did grow up in a small province in Sicily, which is the same province that Chuck's family came from. So
Really?
yes, um, relation, but not, a
Yes.
friend that I would have necessarily called. But
Sure.
yes, for sure.
How wonderful. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it is
I
actually.
love that. That's really
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so Gary, it's funny you brought up that reference. It brought it. I immediately went back to childhood memory. My parents were divorced, and my dad used to pick me up every other weekend. And driving back in his 1978 Datsun 280Z, it was
oh,
either it, it
very
was
cool.
either it
Oh.
was either Chuck Mangione, the Beach Boys, or Don't Laugh, Air Supply. So I got
Oh.
and that
No
maybe that's
wonder
an
you are
indictment.
scarred. Air
Yeah, maybe
Supply.
maybe that's an indictment on my dad's listening taste, but yeah, I got all those down. You name it,
Yeah.
I got your references.
Okay. See,
On
I feel a
those.
little bit judged here because I'm like, what's wrong with all of those? I like that. But I like the Beach Eyes.
Air supply is a little iffy.
You draw the
Yeah.
line. You draw the line with Air Supply. Okay,
Drop on
fair.
an air supply.
Fair.
I still
Fair.
love the
I've got
Beach
it.
Boys, but I have not put on air supply since I was 11 years old. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think I'm diversified. I can do all types of music. So
Yes.
I'm
yeah.
all good. It
All
depends
right.
on the mood for sure.
Air
For
Supply was
sure.
definitely more of a female persuasion, at least from what I could see. Like, we weren't banging our heads in the car, going down the
Right.
highway to Air
Yeah.
Supply.
Unless you were Adam's dad. Evidently,
Who
he
evidently was,
enjoyed
yeah.
it.
In that
He
280ZX. I mean, yeah.
yeah, he was a Vietnam vet in combat, so maybe that was like his calming thing was
Well, that
air
There
would
you
do it.
go.
supply.
There you go. That's
So there you
funny.
go.
That would do
My
it.
dad had a 280ZX as well. So I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
great
I
car.
forgot about that. That was a blast
Yeah.
from the past.
Yeah, those are
Yep.
Yeah.
cool.
Very
All
fun.
right. Enough about but so I took us down that rabbit trail. I apologize, everybody, but it's
Sorry.
always
Yeah.
fun. It's always fun. So, Jack, um, give us some useless or useful trivia. By the way, supposedly, I just heard this morning that supposedly there's a peace deal being brokered in the Middle East, which would be a wonderful thing. We'll see. But anything having to do with businesses and that kind of stuff, and then also Jack, and I know Adam, you're going to want to weigh in on this too, but do a proper intro when it's time for Ashley, because Ashley is here because of you and your prowess and your connections, which we appreciate. So take it away there, Jack.
Well, thank you for that credit, but I'll tell you the true story about how I know Ashley in a moment. But as
Be
far as
careful.
current, yeah, I know. Well, I know, because you know my secrets too. So It is so first thing, yes, peace deal. I think that the interesting thing about that is, how I always kind of say, well, switch channels between 114 and 117 on XM to get both sides of the story, that both sides are not necessarily praising Trump, but giving him credit. So, you have 117, the MSNBC, CNBC's giving him at least acknowledging that he was the force behind this potential peace deal, and being relentless. So, again, not a political statement, just an observation. As far as what's going on on Capitol Hill, so a couple interesting Cliff Clavin type facts, right? So the reason why people will be getting their next paycheck for the most part is because the government shutdown occurred, I think 3 days into, or the end of the prior pay period occurred 3 days into the shutdown. So they will get checks, but it will be less than, because there's 3 days not covered in that. The back and forth on essential workers, military in particular, is that they are going to get paid. But that is back and forth as well. As far as furloughed employees, that are they going to get paid? There is not just the possibility that they won't get paid. It may be that their furlough becomes permanent. And so again, back and forth, fingers pointing, back and forth. There's been some confrontations between Congress members in the Capitol building and elsewhere that we've seen on TV. But until it's the things that we talked about last week that Adam brought up as well, with healthcare and the Democrats not trusting the Republicans when they say, let's put a Band-Aid on this to move forward, and with a promise that we will negotiate this. And and everybody's saying, again, pointing fingers at each other. If you and your party cared about the country, then you would not prevent or keep on voting the way you vote. The votes are not terribly off, which is meaning that it isn't that they need a landslide of Democrats to move over. It's a handful or two to do that. So the next vote, I think, will occur supposedly in about 20 minutes. So we'll see what happens. So that's the latest on that.
Before you do this, this is going to be tip of the hat to you, Ashley. I'm assuming you're going to go there, but what you just talked about, Jack, is this polarization. Well, leadership always sets the tone. So if mom and dad are fighting, the children are at unrest. And so we have people that we've elected that are behaving like children. And as a result, we have people on both extremes out on street corners and whatever, behaving like children as well. So is it any wonder? So we can't do a lot about that other than we can vote and whatever. But we, as business owners, business leaders, we have a responsibility. And even as parents, we have a responsibility to get our crap together and behave, because as we go, so does the rest of the organization, so does our families, etc. So just put that one in your thinking cap. But Adam, I know you've got something that is on your mind, and there's probably some tax stuff going on here too. So take it away.
Yeah, no, from a tax perspective, just a reminder to everybody where this would show up is that, at play is reimbursement for Medicare, Medicaid that was cut as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and then also an extension of the Affordable Care subsidies that were put in place. There were subsidies before Biden. It's just that they cut off, and if you were in sort of this donut spot of $65,000, then you got cut off, from the credit. So it just was not. There were still a lot of people that were not signing up for health insurance because it was still unaffordable without the credit that were making more than round number $65,000. So when Biden, as part of the stimulus package, also slipped in a air quote fix to the tax credit, he indexed it to what you got paid, and capped it out at like 8.5%. So what that did is it opened up people that made from like $65,000 to 100 and some odd $1,000. It opened them up to now all of a sudden receiving a tax credit that makes their insurance more affordable on the exchange, meaning they can actually buy it. So that led to an increase in people signing up for health insurance that were not signing up before for health insurance. And the Democrats' speculation on that is that a lot of those were like farmers and other people in red states that voted for Trump. So they're like, well, cool. As bad as it sounds, well, cool. As soon as their first bill comes in and they see that their health insurance is doubled, then they'll apply some pressure and we'll get this fixed. I think the only thing I wanted to point out is that it was a new thing that was added by the Biden administration that then is going away, and the impact is all the people that signed up that previously hadn't been signing up. That health insurance is now affordable, which is still a lot of people. And the way that it shows up is that in two ways. One, I go to renew my healthcare on healthcare.gov, and all of a sudden I get a bill back for it. And it's like, holy crap, that's a lot more expensive. So I, at that point, either have two options. One is lie about my income so I get some sort of a subsidy and now I have insurance. Or alternatively, I just don't take the insurance. Or I guess option 3 is I just suck it up and pay it. If I chose route 1, then what'll end up happening is at the end of the year when I go to file my tax return, I'm just going to get a big tax bill, that basically in effect says repay the credit that you received. So that's how this will end up showing up for people in terms of their actual tax bill. From a business owner perspective, outside of small employers that otherwise are not providing health insurance, they've got employees who are shopping on the exchange. There's not going to be too much impact. But what you could see happen is that if they don't do something about it, I could see a small business owner that otherwise has an employee pool that's in that kind of 65 to 100 something window that doesn't offer healthcare because they're not required to, having their employee base come back and say, hey, dude, I'm sorry, I got to go find a different job, and go with somebody that provides health insurance because now my health insurance is not affordable. You can make sort of the esoteric argument, sort of like we do with the whole, but you used to commute to the office before the pandemic. I don't understand why the commute's a problem now. Argument. You used to pay for the health insurance, and now it's just that, for these people, it's like, look, get an extra $500-600 in the paycheck. That's living money. That's not like, oh yeah, totally, I was banking that the whole time. That's like, cool. Like I bought a new car with that or something that I needed. So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'll hop off it now, other than to echo Gary's comments of mom and dad getting along. I will share one last thing, going back to Jack's point. I had to look up his name to remember it, but I was watching a news show the other night, to be not named, but it did not start with any of the initials that Jack referenced, but does happen to be owned perhaps by someone in the Ellison family, for those who get that reference. But they had on Dusty Johnson, who is a Republican representative from South Dakota. And the minute he got done speaking about the specific issue, I looked at my wife and I said, how quickly can I vote for that guy? For president. And then immediately they had on a Democratic representative. And how a lot of times when people really hate each other, they'll still say, well, I have a lot of respect for this Democratic representative said, Dusty Johnson is one of my favorite human beings in the House of Representatives.
Wow.
And I just thought, man,
There's hope.
what an amazing, and he's a younger guy. I mean, what an amazing testament of, I haven't looked at like his voting record and stuff like that, but like, what an amazing testament of character to have like your competition say he's actually one of my favorite people on the planet. You know, that's pretty, that's the way it used to be, and the way that
Yeah.
it should be again.
Great addition. I love that.
All right, so let's get to the main event. Quick Cliff Notes version. So I've known Ashley for decades. She married one of my best friends. So the first friend I made when I moved to Charlotte in the 80s in high school. The short version of it is, and we have disputing versions of this, was that we were at soccer tryouts and I was shooting on the goal. Alberto is the goalkeeper. I got maybe 4 or 5 goals past him. His number count is a little bit lower than that. And then I say on the 4th time, he says on the 2nd time, he really didn't care where the ball was. He just took my feet out from under me, and to teach me a lesson. And then I was like, okay, I finally made friends, or thought I did. And then, so I'm walking back to my car, all dejected, ready to go home and just, be sad in my own self. And he invites me to go to the TCBY on Sardis North. And I got to meet
cool.
all the people that I was watching over the summer months, wondering, okay, am I ever going to make any friends, kind of thing. So, from that point forward, we've remained really good friends, actually lived in the same neighborhood for a long period of time. And I will tell you that Ashley is one of the few people that could tell our stories in accurately, without embellishment, over the more than 3 decades of telling these stories to other people. So, if you want the original version of the stories, you can go to Ashley or to my wife, who know the original versions. And when we tell them, you can watch them roll their eyes and not say anything. So I will tell you that Ashley, as long as I've known her, has had a servant leader's heart. And I'm thrilled to be able to share with you and allow her to share what she has going on, because it not only impacts the younger generations, but obviously older generations and business owners, and is something that is impactful through our lives, and our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives and everything else. So Ashley, I will ask you to give the appropriate introduction of your background and what you got going on.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Interesting. I just learned something new, because when you said that the 2 of you went to TCBY, I actually worked in that TCBY. That was my first job ever. And one of the ways that I actually met my husband. So that's just funny to think about that. So, Jack, we've actually known each other way longer than we probably even realized.
Yes.
That's a fun fact. So thanks for having me, guys. I obviously, you already know, I'm Ashley. Mangione is the correct pronunciation for my name.
Thank you.
But I hear all the things, Mangione. I answer to all of them. None of them matter. Overall, I'm really just Ashley. I am what is considered an executive functioning life coach. So, executive functions are the skills that we all have to function to the best of our ability every single day. So I've earned my master's in counseling, but my background is actually in reading education. So for me personally, I feel that the 2 strongest skill sets that we all can possess is to be a strong reader with good comprehension, and we must possess strong executive functioning skills in order to reach our potential and our success, however we define success. So if we're talking about being a medical doctor, if we're talking about being a landscaper, if we're talking about being a mom, we have to implement executive functioning skills, because again, these are the skills that we use every day. So at any point, feel free to jump in, but otherwise, I'd love to give a quick overview of what executive functioning skills actually are. Because I get this question all the time, like, Ashley, I've never even heard that term before. What are these? So a lot of people, if they have heard the term, think of them as time management and organization. That is true. Those are two of the executive functioning skills. Depending on what expert you ask, some would say there are 7 executive functioning skills. Some say as many as 15. I land on about 11 because I don't think 7 really encompasses all of them, and 15, there's just too much overlap. So some of the executive functioning skills that we're using all the time, like we already talked about, time management, organization. By the way, we can talk about time management if you guys want to. It's often not really time management that gets us in trouble. It's time estimation where we fall short on that. Other executive functioning skills include task initiation, being able to stay focused, flexible thinking. Can we pivot when we need to within a situation? Perseverance, that goes back somewhat to task initiation. If we can even start the task, can we finish it to a satisfactory goal? And some that people don't realize are part of our executive functions that can get us into a lot of trouble, whether we're talking about individually in our personal relationships and our work relationships. That is emotional control, impulse control. And then I often get asked, Ashley, what do you think is the most important executive functioning skill? It's actually one that most people don't even realize is one, and that is self-awareness. Fancy word, metacognition. We have to know ourselves because we all have strengths in executive functioning skills. We all have weaknesses. So I said all of this about executive functioning skills. I'm also considered an ADHD expert because ADHDers are documented to have weaker executive functioning skills for most of them up until full brain development, which is easily in the mid-20s. And the reason why is because it all takes place in the same part of our brain. So our executive functioning skills right here behind this front, our forehead, it's in the prefrontal cortex. And again, we all have them. You're using them right now. So Gary put on his glasses today. Nobody said to Gary, hey, Gary, these are a pair of glasses. They go right here on your eyes. You're actually using an executive functioning skill called working memory. At some point in your life, you learned glasses go on eyes, glasses help me see. That attaches to my long-term goal. Therefore, all of those are your executive functioning skills at work for you.
So
any questions so far?
Yeah. So it's funny you ended up with the self-awareness because I was thinking, how do I know what my strengths and weaknesses are? I mean, is there a test out there that would, say, okay, spend 15 minutes taking this test and it would identify? I mean, is it that I don't want to dumb it down or make it that simple because I'm sure it's a lot more, well, it is a lot more complex, but is there a way to assist me with my own self-recognition of my strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, you could do a quick Google search and just say, hey, what's a free executive functioning skills test? I'm sure there'll be, hundreds that pop up. But if you don't even want to go to that level, think about your day, think about your life. We all actually, if we really give thought to it, can pinpoint a little of this ourselves. Do I always run late? Is my desk scattered where I can't find something? Do I react emotionally in a lot of situations? Do I snap at my kids? Do I snap at my coworker? Do I snap at my spouse? That might give a quick clue that I have some emotional control issues that I need to work on here. Am I always forgetting where I put my keys, where I put that important document? Can I find it on my computer quickly? Do I find myself when I know I need to pay attention to something, but I'm like, oh, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch today? Or, oh, I need to make sure that I get my kid to soccer practice on time. If we start to notice all of these things that are creating havoc within our brain, we can begin to isolate pretty quickly that, well, I might have some challenges here with my emotional regulation. I might have some challenges here with my organizational skills. I may need to work on some of my time management. So, yes, sure, you could take a test if you wanted to. A lot of people, though, that have challenges with that, that's just one more thing to do. Sometimes we can just sit here and analyze this within 5 minutes if we're honest with ourselves.
I'm curious, Ashley, you've been doing this for a while, and it sounds like you work with a wide spectrum of people that want to improve their executive functioning skills, which is awesome. If there was, if there were a few that you would say, wow, there's a common pattern here across business leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, etc., what would be the ones, like what would be the top two or three?
Okay, so great question. One, time management. One, flexible thinking. Working memory. Organization. Believe it or not, impulse control as well. Now, again, remember, I think the most important one is self-awareness. So just because some person has a weakness in one, they may have strengths in the other. But if we're talking about business leaders in particular, or especially entrepreneurial business leaders, we usually have these grand ideas that we need to implement. So one thing that we have to do using our executive functioning skills is to bring that more into focus. So our impulse control is definitely required. We may start to think, oh, I should do this, or I could do this, or I should do this. And we need to really stop and think, yes, I can do potentially a lot of those things. But first of all, should I be doing that? Does that align to what the actual goal of my business is? So that's incredibly important, especially for a business owner, because it's easy to go down a lot of different rabbit trails. But that doesn't mean that we don't still use flexible thinking at some point, and that we can pivot if an idea isn't working, or we do have another great idea that we can somehow put into the funnel of our business as well. But if we're not careful with all of that and monitoring that impulse control to really hone in on what are the goals, at least right now, for my business, then we can fall into a lot of pitfalls, such as decision fatigue, getting where we actually can't even make a good decision, time blindness, getting so caught up into one avenue of how we should be spending our time, or more so how we are spending our time versus how we should be spending our time. Disorganization, which can, by the way, happen to even the most organized person if we have too much on our plate or too much going on. All of this creates exhaustion. So then we get into our emotional challenges, and maybe we react, not necessarily just snapping at someone, but maybe, we just start crying, which creates, strained relational harm. And then we can get into perfectionism, and that really becomes paralysis of, okay, well, if I can't do it perfectly, then that wreaks havoc in our head. So these are all pitfalls that we can fall into as business owners, for sure.
So another follow-on question on this, because running a company is a very lonely seat at the table, and
Yeah, it
they don't
definitely can
know.
be.
I mean, because a lot of times your spouse gets tired of hearing it. Your colleagues, like, they need to be shielded from some of those pressures and worries, et cetera. And so, that's why Vistage groups and C12 groups and those kind of things can really help, where you've got some support systems. So I'm just curious, when you look at your history of the greatest successes of, and again, I'm going to go back to business leaders and in particular that have seen breakthroughs. Have you had any examples where they had like a buddy or they had a COO or a trusted confidant, whether it be in the organization or out, where they were working through some of this stuff together versus in isolation with a therapist?
Yes. So there's actually, you're somewhat touching on what we, in my world, call mirroring. There's a lot of research that shows that when we work with someone, even silently, if you and I were working together in the same office, if I was running my own business, if you're running your own business, they have nothing to do with each other, but you're working at your desk, I'm working at mine. Our brains actually react to that. And that helps us bring like a calm to the stressors that happen in our brain. So, first of all, just having a physical presence of someone, knowing that we're somewhat in the same boat, brings some calm to our emotional center part of our brain. And there's a lot of research that supports that. Again, that's called mirroring, sometimes also referred to as body doubling. Now, having a trusted person to speak with about some of the deepest fears that we have as business owners, obviously incredibly helpful, because I think what happens to a lot of us, it all starts up here in our mind. The doubts creep in, the concerns. Am I doing enough? Is this going to work? Am I failing at home while I'm trying to succeed here? It all starts up in the mind. So if we have a trusted person that we can say these thoughts out loud to, that's quite beneficial to us. Part of the challenge is finding who is that person. You know, in general, we can all be, I hate to use the word self-involved because it's such a negative connotation. And sometimes it's not necessary. Obviously, there are people that are self-involved, but sometimes it's not intentionally being self-involved. It's just, I'm drowning in my own business. I only have so much bandwidth to even provide to you to support as my friend. But if we can recognize that just having, they don't even have to be these deep conversations, but just saying, hey, I'm a little worried about this. How are you feeling about this? You know, Jack and Adam both just touched on things going on out there in the world of what we can't control necessarily. So again, remembering that it all starts here in our own head. The biggest thing is to ask ourselves, what can I control? And I remind all, go ahead.
Go ahead. Adam, you got your hand raised.
Hold on one second, Adam. I was just going to say, I remind all of my clients, we have choices. We always have choices. Those can be bad choices. They can be great choices, but we always have choices. And we really need to stop and think about that in the moment before we make any decision, before we agree to something else that we put on our plate, before we spiral into overwhelm, depression, all of these other negative emotions. We need to think, okay, what is the best choice I can make right now with the best consequence? Then we act. But we don't act until we ask ourselves that. And sometimes that's the best feedback we can give to that friend, that coworker, that other business owner when they do start to express, hey, I'm worried, I'm concerned. Are you feeling this too? It's okay, let's just step back and think, all right, what choices do we have? And what is the best one we can make right now? And frankly, does this need to be made right now? Maybe we just need to sit on it and give it a little more time. All right, Adam, go ahead. What?
Cool. I've got 2 questions for you. with 5 parts. I'm just kidding.
Okay. I'm like, okay, now I need to write it down. That's
Yeah,
a
you
good
might.
strategy
Yeah,
for
I'm not.
using
I'm not gonna.
executive
I'm not.
functioning.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask them both at the same time. I'm gonna ask them one at a time. I just would be. I
Okay,
would just ask the permission to ask them both after you finish answering the
go
first one.
ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm asking for a friend. Um, you know, I was at the dinner the other night with a friend, and then two my daughter, and then my daughter's friend. Daughter's friend just started her first job, and she's was like trembling on week one because toxic boss who's in New York fired a person, the younger girl, on the spot after berating her in front of the whole team on a Zoom call, and then
Wow.
a couple days later
Ouch.
showed them the apology that he'd written and then read it, you know about, hey, I was effectively, hey, I'm sorry you needed to see that. So you know where do you, in your work or in your field, where do you see kind of the, or how would you diagnose, like, is this person narcissistic or on the narcissist spectrum, and there's no hope, no
Mhm.
hope for this person, versus like, now we can fix you up. Like, what are the couple questions that you would ask the person to diagnose your, good luck, good luck with that. you know Versus, no, I can work with you. Like, we can work this behavior pattern to where you're not toxic boss anymore.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. You're talking about if I was working with said toxic boss that fired person on the spot.
Mhm.
If the
What
toxic,
Yeah, if the toxicity was narcissistic behavior that's sort of unrecoverable, versus now this person just is, can change.
yeah. Okay, so one thing, if you were looking at that, first of all, I would really want to talk to that person to see, do you feel like, what do you think was wrong with the decision or what just went down in that scenario? That is eye-opening, because a truly narcissistic person, if we're talking about, the mental health definition of it, um, not very recoverable. They won't really see their error, or they will start to manipulate what the error was, that technically it was the other person's fault versus our fault. Now, that doesn't discount that maybe the behavior was, not up to standard, wasn't up to par for the employee. Obviously, we all can agree that that would not be the way to handle the situation. But again, narcissistic boss, narcissistic, um, has to be able to own, okay, I did not handle that correctly and I want to change.
Mhm.
Narcissistic people don't want to change. And if they do, if we're talking again mental health wise, they may say they want to change. Most will, if they think, there's going to be, some kind of consequence. But it doesn't take long to realize you actually don't want to change.
Yeah,
So therefore, that's mental health wise, this isn't going to work out, so to speak. But most people actually aren't narcissistic in the true mental health definition. Some just lack self-awareness. And
Mm.
in that case, the scenario you gave, lacked impulse control, lacked emotional regulation. Anytime you're in leadership, even, or if you're just an individual, any of our short-term goals must align to our long-term goal. If it does not align, then we don't need to make that one of our goals. So in this case, if this leader, if his goal or her goal is to have a cohesive, strong working team that is going to meet all these deliverables, then how he treats them, how he empowers them, has to attach to that goal. Well, obviously, we can all agree what he just did to the one individual does not align to that. But frankly, what message did he just send to all the people that witnessed it?
Mhm.
That also doesn't align. So that person has to first of all decide, hey, I really screwed that up. I'm not going to get the productivity out of my team by acting that way. So I need to look inside and do some work myself to see, okay, what should I do going forward? And how can I switch this environmental challenge that he just created?
Yeah. The th- Thank you for the answer there, Ashley. It's, that's just a tough one, because like,
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
think you nailed it. The narcissist want to change, but really wants you to change. and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
and oftentimes, surrounds himself finally with people who won't point out, what the behavior, or has all the enablers built up around him. So I guess,
Which, by the way, as the employee in that
yeah,
situation, remember I said we all have choices.
yeah,
If that type of environment doesn't align with my long-term goals for myself or my peace or my productivity, then I obviously need to start looking to say, okay, what are my choices here?
yeah,
Mhm.
And explore that.
that's right. So second question, Ashley, is that, let's assume that I'm not, the narcissist, but at the same time, I've got, I've got the Gary thing going on. Hey, I'm lonely. Maybe I've got somebody that I could talk to. Maybe I don't. At the same time, as a boss, I'm always surprised at the number of people who think of me as intimidating. I'm like, how is that even possible? So I mean, look at me, I'm wearing a hoodie. Um, what are the, what are the, if you were to say, hey, what are the top, one or two, lies, polite definition being, it's my blind spot. I'm unaware of it. you know, what, what are kind of the, what are kind of the top one or two lies that we tell ourselves, um, as bosses that are just not true, kind of the blind spots that we should be aware of that we just refuse to be aware of, or similar to the narcissist, we know about them and we want to change it, but we actually don't want to change it, we just want to change it, and we just want everybody else to put up with them because I'm the boss.
Yeah, well, there are a lot
but
of
but but
people,
but we really ought to, because they're culture killers.
absolutely culture killers. Which again, back to that self-awareness piece, we really have to think about, okay, what culture do I want here? Do I want to always be right? You say like, well,
Mhm.
somebody might, accuse you of being intimidating. The truth is, some people thrive on that. They love the fact that people perceive them as intimidating because it comes from a position of, I just want power. I want power. I want power. And this makes my ego feel good.
Mm.
So, that gets into a little bit of awareness. But again, you can, as a leader, take that road and be like, I don't care. I'm in charge. So y'all can all suck it up. And if you don't like it, go find somewhere else. There are plenty of people that operate that way. And like you said, they may be able to get the enabler. They may be able to find the person that just needs a job. So, in some ways, yes, that may work. But if you are starting to kind of question, like, well, could that be true? Like you just said, Adam, like, what? I'm in a hoodie. Like, I mean, what's intimidating about that? Well, the truth is, okay, so maybe it gives a I'm calm, I'm cool kind of vibe. But if you're really interested in knowing why do people think I'm intimidating, ask,
Mm.
ask. Like, say, hey, wow, I'm like in a
uh,
hoodie. Like, have I done something? Am I saying something? Is it my body language? Is it my facial expression? How am
so
I
you're
communicating to you that you
so
receive it as I'm intimidating?
so what you're telling me is that when I actually said, well, that's crazy, Could you
Yeah.
possibly feel intimidated by me? That was the incorrect response to the situation at hand,
Yeah,
and I should have tried
possibly.
something different. Okay, got it.
Possibly, we could have rephrased that.
Duly noted for next
Yeah.
time.
Remember how I said that we want to stop and think and ask ourselves, what is the
Yeah,
best choice I can make with the best consequences?
yeah.
You can make that choice, but might not get, the best consequence for you. By the way, let's also differentiate between being intimidating and being respected.
Mhm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
truth is there should be a natural, maybe hierarchy is not the best choice of word, but I think we know what I'm saying. That as a business owner, we do want our employees to respect that really the weight of this business falls on my shoulders. I took the risk. I am the one that's still responsible for, the rent at the office space, the fact that you have a paycheck that your family can eat on. Like, that is a lot of weight to carry as a business owner. And so, it's okay to be respected in that regard. On the other hand, all people deserve respect too. You can even respect someone that you no longer think belongs in your organization, by how you handle that exit strategy for them.
Mm.
We all have to or should be able to lay our head on our pillow at night. There's a lot, in my opinion, more to life than just our businesses. We have to lay our head on our pillow at night in peace. And again, that's something that, we need to analyze, briefly, probably every day is, what did I do well today? What could I have done better? And what do I need to do tomorrow, differently or otherwise?
So Adam, it sounds like what she's saying is that telling someone they're a dumbass or they have dumbass ideas is probably not the best thing to do, except on this program at the beginning. So yes, all good.
I have moved on from using the word moron, idiot, at least to their face.
Yeah.
but I appreciate the therapy session, Ashley.
Yeah. Hey, call me up. I have an office,
Yeah.
Hey, we may
I
need to
gotcha.
talk further. We may
Yeah.
need to talk further.
Yeah, that's right.
So how would you
And then
say?
also,
I just say, like, it's just funny because, like, anytime I say, "Hey, could I have a minute with you?" And then hey, let's go in a conference room because it's going to be a private conversation. Invariably, the employee believes they're about to be fired. And at the same time, the number of times that I've actually fired somebody after taking them into the conference room since I started the company in November of 2006 is officially zero. Like, I should just be more self-aware of, like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? It's actually nothing bad. It's all good, to kind of set up the conversation walking into the office.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, too, think about what's going on before you ask for that. Hey, can I talk to you about this? Relationship is huge. So, if you're working on relationship, then ask every once in a while, how was your weekend? How are your kids doing? Anything that you can ask to make that more relational is huge. And honestly, people work harder and smarter typically for people that they respect and even potentially like. So that makes them feel seen as a human, first of all. Every once in a while, share a little personal tidbit about yourself. Something maybe that you did, or hey, I went fishing this weekend. Whatever the case may be, it makes you look more relational and reminds people that, hey, we're all human here, just trying to do the best that we can. I would suggest, and maybe you do this all the time too, though, is that when we are going to have those conversations, obviously we can't always plan ahead. Sometimes something pops in our head. Sometimes there's a tight deadline, and we do need to say, hey, can we just chat for a second in the conference room? But otherwise, if you do think it might be a more challenging conversation, give someone a heads up. Hey, I want to talk to you tomorrow. You can be specific if you want on at what time, or I just want to grab you tomorrow morning at some time. I want to talk about such and such, or how we can, improve this challenge. Giving people a heads up also helps to calm them a little bit, also helps them to be able to think ahead of the situation. Not everybody's the quickest thinker on the spur of the moment. A lot of us are processors. And so when they have a minute to process, that actually helps them feel a little more confident and emboldened and a lot less threatened because
That,
most of the things that we come from operate out of fear.
yeah. You brought up exactly like what Bert Phillips said, and I can testify to this. He says, I could see why Adam could be perceived as intimidating. He's smart, fast thinking, opinionated, direct, and confident while he's casual. And that's true. All of those
Mhm.
things are true. And he's got a big heart, but he's also got a position of power. He doesn't wield that like other people that I've seen in that position, but that just the position itself can be intimidating, irrespective of who is occupying the position. The position has power. And so,
Right.
you know, this is really good.
So
You know,
actually, just so you know, we've spent a lot of time actually over the past 275 episodes talking about culture and
Yeah.
about how, we foster a better culture and being aware that, okay, do we really have, when we say we have an open door policy in our companies, that do
mhm,
we really have that? Do our employees and our colleagues perceive that it really is true, that it's going to remain anonymous and remain confidential and those kind of things? But
mhm,
I want to go back to, what have you seen is, so assume that we all have these ideas and want to go down, it's like, oh gosh, okay, have this great idea, and getting kind of sucked into thinking about it and being obsessed with it. So I have various ways of dealing with that. So I have a list that is the task function in Outlook. I have a paper binder that I put stuff in. I use the reminders and other things electronically. So I really don't have one set way, but if people are experiencing okay, I have these random thoughts and I just want to be able to not forget, tuck them away, what have you
mhm,
seen are the best methods to be able to, you know, hold on to that and come back to it later when it's more
mhm.
appropriate and it's not distracting, so they can continue to focus on what they're doing? Is it paper? Is it a program? Is it your iPad? What have you seen as best for creating that environment?
All of it? No. The truth is, all of it can be. I tell people all the time, um, the system you choose just has to be one you will use. And part of that flexible thinking might be that you need to try out different systems. So, one thing that we do want to do is we want to help our working memory by externalizing as much as we can to free up that space in our memory. So, one of the best ways to externalize is to write it down. Now, you may be, I love doing it on my computer. I can do all these graphics, I can highlight it, that sort of thing. I may be, and I am, I'm a pencil and paper girl, not even a pen. I'm a pencil because I like to be able to erase. I like it to be able to see it neat in that regard. I keep a notebook with me all the time so that if an idea pops in my head, I do jot it down. I actually also, because we all have our phones with us all the time, I keep a notes, folder like all of us do. I jot down any idea that pops in my head, whether I'm going to use it or not. I jot it down in a place that I know I can go back and refer to things with it. Some people love sticky notes. So you'll see on a wall behind someone, they may have certain colored sticky notes for things that have to be done in a timely fashion, certain colored sticky notes that things that may be done one day in 2026 or 2036. It really doesn't matter to me what system someone uses. The point is, they have to have a system. Everybody has to. And that sounds so basic. It is amazing how many people do not.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that can be the CEO of a major corporation or a high school student trying to just get through their classes. Because again, we always think we're smarter lots of times than we are. And we just go, oh, I'll remember it. I don't need to write it down. Your brain will fail you at some point. Your memory will fail you at some point. So again, that's what I mean by we want to externalize and get it somewhere.
And also, you pointed to the wall behind you. I want to also mention how you've interpolated this, and maybe that was the source of it, and then you went into the older generations. But about the books behind you, the set you gave
Oh,
me, I don't have up on my wall, but I love what you've done with the covers of it.
why not?
I know. I'm late to everything, as you mentioned. So, can you, unsolicited, tell us more about what you have going on with the younger generations and those books that are behind you.
Yeah. So, I always say my real job is that I coach people in executive functioning skills and, potentially ADHD as well. But again, executive functioning skills are for all of us. My background, like I said, though, is in reading education. And because of that, I am convinced that executive functioning skills really should be taught from kindergarten through 12th grade. These are the skills that help us to, again, feel more peaceful, more productive, more successful. They help in our relationships. We're going to remember it more and find it more useful than, for example, high school biology, unless
Yeah.
we're in a field that needs high school biology. Um, so what I did was dive into social emotional learning, more so as a creative outlet for me, as a hobby. Um, I wrote about things that would come up in my practice consistently, and using literature, especially with children, is a non-threatening way to bring up conversations. So that's what I do. I have, children's books on friendship, on school challenges, on self-esteem. Um, One new one, I actually have it sitting here. Um, it's called Eddie's New Skills. It's all about executive functioning skills
Oh,
with
that's cool.
tips for how to implement that with children. Because again, most people don't know what this is, even though we're using these skills sometimes well, lots of times not very well. Um, and it's something that we all need to be more aware of so that if we are the CEO of a company, we're handling our business better. If, we're the dad and we've got to get 3 kids to soccer practice all on the same night, we're using executive functioning skills um, to make that happen. This just encompasses everything.
And I also want to mention, so the name of the business is Dynamic. Well, actually, you have several businesses. There's a
I do.
501c3 that will eventually come into existence when Alberto and I finish our moonlighting and getting the application in the door to the IRS. But so the kind of the various businesses that you have, if you would also
Yeah.
share those.
Yeah. Okay. So my one business is Dynamic Learning Connection. That is my coaching business, my speaking business, where I work with individuals, groups, doing things like we're doing right here, on how to implement executive functioning skills into our lives. My second one is I have my own publishing company called Dynamic Learning Press, where I have these books that I've published, 2 more that are coming out within the next 4 months, probably, including one on dealing with loss with children under the guise of a grandfather that has dementia. And
Mm.
then I have the nonprofit that is coming called Dynamic Learning Compassion, which is all about getting books into underserved populations, primarily related to these social emotional learning issues. Again, because literature with children, really for all of us, but with children can be a very non-threatening vehicle to start conversations because children are having these thoughts in their head. And even the book that I have on friendship, um, it's called The Boat, but I wrote it in general for children that struggle with friendship challenges. What I have found is that this book is resonating with a lot of high schoolers. It resonates with adults because that's a whole nother topic of truly how lonely we all are and finding the right table when you may have encountered that there's not a seat for you at certain other tables. And that's actually not, lots of times we think of that as a female kind of challenge. It's actually not. It is for a lot of us. And understanding even that friendships come in seasons. Obviously, not ours, Jack, but in general, a lot of things happen in life. People move, life stages change. A lot of friendships are seasonal, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, nor should we take it personally. So, even in that regard, literature is a vehicle.
Ooh, Ashley, you and I are going to have to talk offline about imposter syndrome in children.
Yeah.
Gary wrote a book
and in
as well.
adults. You did? Okay.
Yeah, I wrote this book, Silence the Imposter, but because of what I've seen with not only myself from 10 years old, but with a lot of CEOs and leaders that we had a woman that has had 10,000 employees and said, Gary, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, what? And she's really good. and I said, why? I was like, well, I only have a 2-year secretarial degree. Like, what? I mean, this comparison thing. So you and I need to talk about this because I think it'd be very fascinating. But anyway, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for hanging with us. Look up Ashley. Check her out on her website, LinkedIn, etc. Jack, thank you for teeing up another really insightful and informative conversation. So anyway, so thank you so much. And Adam, always good to see you.
Yep,
hoodie or
absolutely.
not. He was dressing up, Ashley, with that hoodie today.
I actually really like the color too. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of Carolina blue there,
Ish, yeah.
Ish. I think
right.
the bottom line too, though, is that we all hold these thoughts in our head, whether it's what Adam was saying, the imposter syndrome of the 2-year degree. We all hold these thoughts in our head, and it's nice to have safe spaces to get them out or to be reminded that, hey, I'm not the only one thinking this way.
Yes.
There's a lot of relief and even joy and just knowing that, I'm maybe more normal than I think.
Yeah, that's good. We will put this up for anybody that came on late to the BGW CPA or BGW Advisors now YouTube channel, and same way with Shoemaker, they've got their own YouTube channel. And Ashley, thank you again for being on 275. I have a feeling we'll bring you back again.
I would love to come anytime.
All right. Thank you
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great day. Bye, guys.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.